record on Zoom. Okay, hey everyone, welcome back. I'm just doing a quick video. Hopefully I get this one uploaded since I failed with the last one. Just giving my thoughts going into the vice presidential debate. And so I'm gonna give you just like what I did last time, if you watched the video of kind of just how I was framing the first presidential debate. One of the things I said was, I'm not gonna make predictions about what I think will happen, but just kind of give the various metrics of just kind of what to be looking for. What's at play, what's at stake here, what does Trump have to lose, what does Trump have to gain, what does Biden have to lose, what does Biden have to gain. So I'll give you a little bit of how those predictions panned out and how that plays into what's going on tonight, and the ways in which tonight doesn't matter and the ways in which tonight does matter. And so just to kind of refresh you a little bit, what I said going into the last presidential debate was there was a few things. One of them is I talked about an NBC poll that showed that I think it was something like 29% of people said that the debates really mattered to them, really mattered. And I said, okay, well that tells us that those people are still taking in information, which means they're open to having their minds changed, right? They're adaptive. Like, you're not looking for more information if you have your mind made up, right? Because you're like, well, it doesn't matter. So there was that. And then I also looked at another poll that was from Pew, I think it was, and it showed that I think it was 11% of Trump voters were somewhere in the range of open to switching their vote for Biden going into the debate, and like 10% of Biden voters were somewhere in the range of open to switching their vote for Trump going into the debate. So it's about 21% wiggle room there. You could say, open to switching, 29% in the NBC poll. And so I said, even if it's somewhere in the middle there, right? Like, everyone probably has some kind of indication of what way they're leaning. Let's say we're looking at about 25% total that can kind of go either way. That falls into some variant of the term undecided, even if they're leaning a direction. Because in this kind of election, no one's really undecided, right? Most people are not really undecided. They have an inclination, but they're varying degrees of open to having their mind changed. And so that's what I said was at stake. And I said Trump had most to lose because it was 38% of Trump voters were not open to changing their mind. And so that means 62% of Trump voters were, and 47% of Biden voters were not open to changing their mind. So in other words, Biden's support was actually more firmly in place than Trump's was. So I said Trump has most to lose here because he has more people that are currently supporting him that are open to having their minds changed. But I said the one thing he has to gain is a lot of people will be watching him that are used to having their perception of him filtered through the New York Times editorial board or CNN, Andrew Cuomo, something like that. And, that's distorted. That's not often very honest coverage, if ever. And so I said, if he does well, people are going to be looking for two things. They're going to be looking at Trump and going, is he the monster or, reckless person that I have been led to believe he is? And is Biden mentally falling apart like I've been led to believe he is? So if Biden falls apart, Trump actually holds himself together, Trump probably goes up by 10. The other side of that is exactly what happened last time. And after the debate, I said, my guess is that Trump's going to drop to probably mid to high 30s in support in the wake of that debate. Because it confirmed people's biases of him. So the opportunity he had to be live and unfiltered, people saw him live and unfiltered being completely undisciplined. And I broke down why I thought that was, and had a lot to do with his horrific debate prep and the way that he framed how he's going to be engaging there. So that part's not important. But the other part is Biden did a pretty good job of holding himself together. Now, his answers were really bad, but Trump interrupted him every time he started to give an answer. So anyway, what I said after that last one is, that probably cemented a lot of people's inclinations. So I predicted that the amount of people who are open to having their minds changed was going to shrink. And that I just didn't think there was a good shot that people who were undecided, especially those who were leaning towards Biden, were going to watch that debate and go, yeah, I'll give Trump another chance. Like, he's just not a person who, you would think people are going to give him a lot of grace or second chances or third chances or whatever. Look at what the responses were to him getting coronavirus. There wasn't a lot of, humility or compassion or anything. It was, he deserved that. And there's parts of that response that I understand. Other parts I find, abhorrent. But anyway, my point is that I predicted that it probably cemented. So here's a poll I found If you're watching this on Facebook, this is a poll from August of 2013, August 13th of this year. And it kind of substantiated the claim that I made in the last one. I hadn't seen this, but before the last debate, it was 84% of Biden supporters were not going to change their mind, and 85% of Trump supporters said they weren't going to change their mind. Well, what is that number in the middle there? What's that number in the middle? That's about 31% total between the two of them that are open to changing their minds. This was actually the same the same poll that showed that of Biden supporters, 56% support him because he's not Trump, which is where I think a lot of people on the right are confused with lack of, like, Biden supporters not being enthusiastic for him is somehow the same as lack of motivation to vote, they're not the same thing. So that's where you get a lot of this like red wave Trump 2020 landslide stuff on Twitter. That's just really mind blowing to me. I can't imagine what world you live in if you think that's going to happen. But it's because they're using the wrong metrics. They're saying lack of enthusiasm for Biden must also mean lack of motivation to vote. So they're not the same thing. Anyway, that's an aside. Here's another data point that kind of shows that Trump support has been kind of hemorrhaging a little bit for a while. So this is a poll from the 2018 midterms. And what it shows is a lot of the story of what a lot of conservatives took away from 2016 is the silent majority type of notion, when really it wasn't that. First off, there was no majority. Trump didn't win the popular vote. But so just in raw terms, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. But the other part of that is it was just lack of voter turnout on the left. So what this poll from the midterm shows, that of those who voted for the House of Representatives in 2018, 68% of them were Democrats that did not vote in 2016, right? And the House was swept by Democrats. The Democrats took back the House in 2018. The other part, and this is where you kind of see a little bit of the trend start here, is that of those that voted those who had voted Democrat in 2018 or in 2016, who voted for Clinton and then switched and voted Republican, 3%. So 3% of Clinton supporters and Clinton voters switched and voted for a Republican in the midterms. It was 5% on the Republican side. So of Trump voters who voted in 2016, 5% of them switched and voted Democrat, and another 2% of them abstained or voted third party. So Trump was already starting to hemorrhage in 2018. Here's the part that to bring it to the close of my point of the pie shrinking a little bit of what was up for grabs. CNN did a poll recently. I know you're going to go, oh, CNN. Well, listen to the way the question is asked, okay? Less than 1 in 10 voters might say they might change their minds on a candidate between now and the vote. This is from Tuesday. I think it's from yesterday. Yeah, Tuesday. So this is after the last debate, and the poll showed that less than 1 in 10 might change their minds on a candidate between now and when they vote. And this is 1 in 10. This is the important point. This is 1 in 10 likely voters, not registered voters. So people who intend to vote, who have a candidate in mind, less than 1 in 10 of them are going to switch. So it's 8% of those who are currently considering Biden are open to changing their mind, and 10% of those currently supporting Trump are open to changing their mind. So the numbers have shrunk, right? So we're looking at 25, 30 before. Now it's about 18 up for grabs. And again, Trump has the most to lose. At most, he can take from Biden 8% of those likely voters, which crazy thing is, it still wouldn't put him where he needs to be right now. So that just shows, that kind of solidifies my argument from my post-debate analysis last time, which was a lot of people's minds are going to be made up then. That was after that last debate. I mean, before even the coronavirus stuff, I was like, yeah, Trump's going to lose. I think he's going to lose. And I still think he's going to lose. He might not lose as bad as by what the polls are showing, but I do think he's going to lose as of right now. And part of that is, I'm not just looking at raw, like Pew Research, who you going to vote for questions. There's other questions you can learn a lot more from. And that's like, how open you are changing your mind? Like, how do you feel about this, and this? Like, even most conservatives don't approve of, his coronavirus response. It's a lot of this is more of a success story of our dishonest media than anything else. Not that Trump doesn't have his own part to play here, but a lot of this is just how completely successful legacy media disinformation is. Anyway, that's another story for another time. So the point is the part that doesn't matter is that there's not a lot of the pie left for the Trump team to claim. Okay, so but there is some. So here's the other part, the part that does matter. It's really fascinating that Kamala Harris hasn't done a single press conference since she was nominated for the vice president spot. She's done a few interviews, but the Democrats have done the same thing with Kamala as they have with Biden, right? The more you look at Biden and Kamala, the more you're like, oh, really? I don't know if I can do that. But the more you keep the spotlight on Trump, and really, he, even if the spotlight starts to turn to Biden or Harris, he like grabs it and turns it back on himself, right? The more you're like, okay, I don't want to look at them. But the more it's on Trump, the more people are like, I just don't want that. And so, like, I think that if Pence can put the spotlight on Harris and show this is what you're voting for, this is who she is, this is who's going to be really your president. If he can do that, I think then they could probably make some ground. He's gonna be standing up there trying to defend Trump this whole time, especially the recent coronavirus stuff, which is going to be really difficult. I had originally thought that he might gain some support, maybe, based on that diagnosis, if it's just him. But as the story expanded out to all these other Republicans getting COVID, then the story becomes not about our president. Is our president okay? It becomes, look at all these, irresponsible people on the right. Their policies failed, ours didn't, and of course there's lots of Democrats that have gotten COVID, right? So that's not an honest way to look at it, but it's just how it's going to be looked at. And so I think any gain he had from getting diagnosed with COVID, I think he's actually lost. I don't think he's going to have a gain there. I think he's actually been hurt by it and will be hurt by it going forward. I could see it hurting like the Senate race. Like, I think that actually really hurts, or it improves the Democrats' chance of getting a super-majority after the election. So anyway, so if Pence can do that and point at Kamala, point at Kamala and say, this is actually what you're voting for in an honest and nuanced way, then I think then they could make up some ground. He's gonna have a tough time defending Trump. The other thing, and I put this in my video when I talked about why I thought Harris was actually probably a better pick than I'd originally given her credit for. I said, I predicted that Pence was going to get skunked by Harris in the debate, largely because there's a thing that both sides do that is really, they hurt their credibility of their arguments. So the left does this with words like racist and fascist. Everyone's a racist, everyone's a fascist, right? But the right does this with like radical and socialist. And so Pence, as soon as they named Harris, Pence was, on Ben Shapiro's show talking about how she is the most radical far left senator there is, and they gave something that labeled that, and I'm like, okay, Bernie Sanders is a senator, Elizabeth Warren is a senator, Kamala Harris is not farther to the left of those two. I'm sorry, you just have no credibility when you say that. So I think if Pence comes out and just does that, like the radical left, like, okay, I get it, there's a lot of that I agree with, but at the same time, you have to explain why. You have to give substance here. You can't just throw that out because it the same way the left, everyone's a fascist, everyone's a racist, and it starts to lose meaning. If you don't explain that in a substantive way here tonight, then it's going to have no meaning. So he does have an uphill battle, but I think by making people remember, oh, wait, yeah, Kamala Harris, who didn't even go to the primary, she didn't even participate in one primary, a vote. No one voted for her. She dropped out before there was a single vote cast. That's probably going to be the one who's president. So, I think reminding people that they can gain some ground, but even the best case scenario for them, they're not going to gain a whole lot. So I wouldn't expect this to move the numbers much. Might a little bit, but I don't see it being super impactful. At this point, really, it's just about Trump. I do think that the next debate people are going to be watching more of. So he has a potential to kind of really take a mulligan on the first debate, because I had originally said people are going to give him a second chance. No one's going to watch the second debate because I was making a video about it. This is what I like to do. This is what I want to do. And even I didn't want to be watching that. And so I didn't think anyone who actually had a choice or felt like they had a choice would actually watch any more of the Biden-Trump debates. Instead, they just watch clips, which are going to be doctored. And so, not doctor, but you know what I mean, like presented with a certain slant. So it doesn't matter. But I think because of the coronavirus stuff, people will be watching the second debate if they have it. Biden's already floating that he doesn't think they should if Trump still has COVID, which is like, well, it's a virus, so it's in your system. But anyway, so, he could have a mulligan there if he learns from this. I don't think he will. Again, my prediction is that he loses. But, obviously I'm open to being wrong there. Just kind of that's what I think the facts are right now. Anyway, okay, so that's it. I'm going to stop recording. Just so you guys know, if you're on Facebook, I'm going to be doing another live stream tonight, like I did last time, where you can watch it along with me and watch me drink some beer and talk about it. I think this one's going to be a little bit more calm. I don't know how much there is to really say about, what's going to be happening tonight. But, I think it is still worth watching because, whether or not right now this election is about things that aren't substantive, but that doesn't mean substance doesn't matter. That doesn't mean substance doesn't matter. So the substance of this stuff is important. I do want to be watching. And I think what Pence does tonight might give us a little bit of a precursor of what, the types of things, because he's going to be trying to tee up stuff for Trump. He's going to be trying to defend Trump also, but hopefully trying to tee up stuff for Trump going to the next debate. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, I am going to stop recording so I can get this uploaded. And everyone, I will see you tonight. All right, peace.